Hashtag The Hunt begins. The Zephyrian hunting vessel Bloodfang drifted silently through the asteroid field of the Sol System's outer rim. Captain Vextar adjusted his chitinous armor plates as he studied the holographic display showing the small blue-green planet ahead. His mandibles clicked with anticipation as he reviewed the intelligence reports his species had gathered about the inhabitants of this backwater world. Third planet from a star, his hunting master Krillax announced, his serpentine body coiled around the command console. The locals call it Earth. Population approximately 8 billion of a species called humans. They appear to be apex predators on their world, but primitive. No faster-than-light travel, limited space exploration, constant warfare among themselves. Vextar's compound eyes gleamed with predatory interest. For 3,000 cycles, the Zephyrian Empire had dominated this galaxy through superior technology and an unmatched hunting culture. Every species they encountered either submitted to become prey in their grand hunts or was eliminated entirely. The thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of bringing down dangerous quarry, these were the pillars of Zephyrian society. Perfect specimens for a grand hunt, Vextar rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. The Galactic Hunting Council will be pleased. We haven't had truly challenging prey since we finished with the Altarians 50 cycles ago. The Altarians have been magnificent prey, Vextar recalled. Tall, graceful beings with natural camouflage abilities and impressive speed. They had provided excellent sport for nearly 2 decades before the last of them fell to Zephyrian hunting parties. The trophy room in his estate still displayed the finest Altarian specimens. Sir, the preliminary scans are complete, announced Lieutenant Esikator from his sensor station. The humans show promising physical capabilities. Bipedal, averaging 1.7 meters in height, excellent endurance markers, and fascinating diversity in their genetic structure. Some specimens show remarkable adaptation to extreme environments. Vextar studied the detailed biological scans flowing across his screens. Humans living in frozen wastelands that would kill most species, others thriving in scorching deserts, mountain dwellers adapted to thin atmosphere, and coastal populations that could hold their breath underwater for impressive durations. Most intriguing of all were the psychological profiles that suggested humans possessed an unusual trait called persistence hunting. They chased their prey to exhaustion, Krillax observed, reading the same data. How delightfully primitive, yet effective. They lack natural weapons like claws or venom, but compensate with endurance and intelligence. This could prove most entertaining. The hunting master's assessment aligned perfectly with Zephyrian preferences. They sought prey that could provide both physical challenge and intellectual stimulation. Too easy, and the hunt became boring. Too difficult, and hunters died needlessly. Humans seemed to occupy the perfect middle ground. Begin phase 1 of the selection process, Vextar commanded. I want detailed observations of human behavior in their natural environment. Focus on isolated populations first. We need to understand their pack dynamics, their stress responses, and, most importantly, how they react when hunted. The Bloodfang activated its cloaking systems and moved into high orbit above Earth. Advanced scanning arrays began collecting data on human settlements, mapping population densities, and identifying optimal hunting grounds. The ship's AI calculated thousands of variables: terrain difficulty, climate challenges, human technological capabilities in different regions, and potential interference from local authorities. Over the following days, Vextar's crew observed human behavior with growing excitement. They watched rescue teams risk their lives to save strangers trapped in collapsed buildings. They recorded footage of humans running incredible distances in competitive events, sometimes for no apparent reward beyond personal satisfaction. Most fascinating were the numerous examples of humans entering dangerous situations voluntarily, seeking what their communications called adventure or adrenaline. They hunt for sport, Krillax noted with something approaching respect. Not just for survival, but for the pleasure of the challenge. Look at these recordings of their extreme sports. They deliberately place themselves in mortal danger for entertainment. The holographic displays showed humans jumping from aircraft, climbing vertical rock faces, diving with massive predatory sea creatures, and racing vehicles at lethal speeds. Each activity carried significant risk of death, yet humans pursued them with enthusiasm. Perhaps more sophisticated than our initial assessment suggested, Vextar mused. They understand the value of risk, the importance of testing oneself against danger. This indicates they might appreciate the honor we're about to bestow upon them. The Zephyrian hunting culture operated on strict codes of honor. Prey was always given sporting chances, hunts were conducted fairly, and survivors who demonstrated exceptional courage or skill were sometimes offered places in Zephyrian society. It was how they had recruited some of their finest hunters over the millennia, warriors from conquered species who proved their worth in the hunting grounds. "Sir, I've identified optimal initial targets," SCK reported. Remote settlements with minimal technological infrastructure. Mountain communities, isolated island populations, desert nomads, Arctic research stations. Small groups of 10 to 50 humans, far from major population centers where our activities might be detected. Vextar approved the selections with a satisfied growl. The first phase would be reconnaissance through direct engagement. Small hunting parties would capture specimen groups, transport them to prepared hunting grounds on uninhabited worlds, and test their capabilities under control conditions. The data collected would inform larger, more elaborate hunts. "Deploy hunting pods to these coordinates," he ordered, transmitting the selected target locations. Standard capture protocols. Stun weapons only for initial acquisition. We want them unharmed and able to provide maximum sport. The Bloodfang launched 6 smaller vessels, each crewed by experienced hunters and equipped with advanced capture technology. The pods were designed to appear as meteorites during atmospheric entry, their true nature hidden until the moment of deployment. Once landed, they would extend camouflaged observation posts and wait for optimal capture opportunities. Hunting Party Alpha, led by pack leader Mordun, targeted a mountain climbing expedition in the Himalayas. 12 humans had established a base camp at high altitude, preparing for an assault on one of the planet's tallest peaks. The isolation was perfect, their advanced climbing gear indicated physical capability, and their willingness to attempt such a dangerous feat suggested the kind of courage that would translate to excellent hunting behavior. Hunting Party Beta selected a group of marine biologists studying coral reefs near a remote Pacific island. The humans demonstrated impressive underwater capabilities, worked effectively as a team, and their research indicated problem-solving abilities that would make them formidable prey. The remaining parties chose similar targets: Arctic researchers, desert archaeologists, rainforest conservationists, and cave explorers. Each group represented humans pushing the boundaries of survival in their planet's most challenging environments. As the hunting pods settled into position around Earth, Vextar felt the familiar anticipation that preceded any great hunt. Soon they would have their first samples, their first taste of what these humans could provide. The preliminary data suggested this could become one of the most memorable hunting seasons in Zephyrian history. "Begin the captures at dawn, their local time," he commanded. "I want the first specimens aboard within 2 days. We have much to learn about these humans before we can design proper hunting grounds for them." The bridge crew acknowledged their orders with the ritualistic hunting calls of their ancestors. Deep, resonant sounds that had echoed across battlefields and hunting grounds for millennia. Tonight, Earth slept peacefully, unaware that its children had been selected for the greatest honor the galaxy could bestow, to become worthy prey for the universe's most accomplished predators. In his private chambers, Vextar reviewed the ceremonial weapons that would soon taste human blood. Each blade had been forged from metals taken from worlds his ancestors had conquered, inscribed with the names of notable prey that had fallen to his clan. Soon, he hoped, human names would join that ancient roll of honor. The hunt was about to begin, and Earth's children would learn what it meant to face the apex predators of the galaxy. What the Zephyrians did not yet realize was that they had chosen to hunt a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history as both predator and prey, survivors who had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain through pure determination, adaptability, and an absolute refusal to surrender. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape both species' understanding of what it truly meant to be apex predators in a hostile universe. Hashtag First Contact. Dr. Sarah Chun pressed her eye against the microscope lens, adjusting the focus as she examined coral samples collected that morning from the reef system surrounding Palmyra Atoll. The research station hummed quietly with the sounds of climate control systems and data processing equipment, isolated in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with nothing but endless blue water stretching to every horizon. Water temperatures up another half-degree from last month, called out Dr. James Morrison from the monitoring station. If this trend continues, we're going to see massive bleaching events across the entire Pacific ecosystem within 5 years. Sarah nodded grimly, making notes in her research journal. Their team of 12 marine biologists had been stationed on this remote research platform for 6 months, documenting the accelerating effects of climate change on coral reef systems. It was critical work, but also heartbreaking as they witnessed the slow death of some of Earth's most beautiful and complex ecosystems. Dr. Chun, you need to see this, called Maria Santos from the sonar station. I'm picking up some kind of large object descending toward our position. Trajectory suggests it's not a supply drop or scheduled aircraft. Sarah looked up from her samples, walking over to examine the sonar display. A bright contact was indeed approaching from high altitude, moving faster than any known aircraft and following a ballistic trajectory that would bring it down somewhere near the research platform. Could be a meteor, suggested Dr. Morrison, joining them at the console. We're pretty far from any shipping lanes or flight paths. Natural phenomenon seems most likely. The object continued its descent, and through the station's observation windows, they could see a bright streak of light cutting through the early morning sky. It looked exactly like a meteorite, complete with the characteristic burning trail and irregular tumbling motion. Impact in approximately 30 seconds, Maria announced, tracking the object's path. Looks like it's going to hit the water about 2 kilometers northeast of our position. The research team gathered at the windows to watch the spectacle. Meteorite impacts in the ocean were rare enough that witnessing one would be a story they'd tell for years. The bright streak grew larger and brighter as it approached sea level, and then hit the water with a tremendous splash that sent waves radiating outward in all directions. Beautiful, whispered Dr. Morrison. I wonder if we'll be able to recover any fragments for analysis. What they didn't see was the meteorite's true nature revealing itself underwater. Advanced camouflage systems shut down as the Zephyrian hunting pod settled onto the ocean floor, extending sensory equipment and preparing to deploy its capture team. Inside the pod, Pack Leader Torvac reviewed the intelligence data on their human targets one final time. 12 specimens, all in peak physical condition from months of diving and swimming in challenging ocean conditions. The humans demonstrated impressive breath-holding capabilities, excellent underwater mobility, and strong team coordination. Perfect subjects for Phase 1 testing. Deploy scout drones, Torvac ordered his team. I want full surveillance on the target platform. Map their routines, identify their strongest specimens, and wait for optimal capture conditions. Microscopic drones, invisible to human detection methods, rose from the pod and spread throughout the research platform. They attached themselves to walls, equipment, and support structures, providing complete coverage of the facility and its inhabitants. The hunting team settled in to observe their prey. Over the next several hours, the Zephyrians studied human behavior with growing interest. They watched the researchers work with dedicated focus, noting how they collaborated on complex problems and shared resources without apparent conflict. Most impressive were the diving operations, where humans equipped with primitive breathing apparatus descended to significant depths to collect samples and install monitoring equipment. They modify their environment to suit their needs. Observe Hunter Veltar reviewing footage of the humans using various tools and technologies. Basic tool use, but applied creatively. Look how they extend their natural capabilities through artificial means. The breathing equipment particularly intrigued the hunting team. Humans were obviously air-breathing creatures, yet they had developed technology to allow extended underwater operations. This suggested adaptability and intelligence beyond what the initial reports had indicated. Sir, optimal capture window approaching, announced sensor specialist Kexera. 4 specimens are preparing for a deep water collection dive. They'll be isolated from the main group and vulnerable during ascent. Torvac considered the opportunity. Capturing humans during a diving operation would allow them to observe stress responses under life-threatening conditions. How did these creatures react when their artificial breathing systems failed? How did they behave when forced to choose between individual survival and group loyalty? Approved. Disable their breathing apparatus at maximum depth and observe their response. Be prepared to intervene if they demonstrate insufficient survival capability. We need live specimens, not corpses. The four-person dive team descended toward a coral formation 60 meters below the research platform, unaware they were being stalked by invisible predators. Dr. Chun led the team, accompanied by 2 graduate students and Dr. Morrison. Their mission was to collect samples from a coral formation that showed unusual resistance to bleaching events. As they worked at depth, focused on their scientific tasks, Zephyr intervention drones moved into position around them. Advanced technology analyzed their breathing equipment, identified critical components, and prepared to introduce subtle failures that would appear to be equipment malfunctions. Initiating equipment failures now, reported Kexera. Human-designated Chun shows anomalous breathing pattern. Her apparatus appears to be malfunctioning. 60 meters underwater, Dr. Chen's rebreather suddenly stopped functioning properly. The carbon dioxide scrubbers failed, causing her breathing gas to become increasingly toxic with each breath. She immediately signaled the problem to her team using established hand signals, indicating equipment failure and requesting assistance. What happened next surprised the Zephyrian observers. Instead of panicking or abandoning her to save themselves, the human team immediately moved to assist. Dr. Morrison began sharing his breathing gas while the graduate students worked to diagnose and repair the malfunctioning equipment. The humans demonstrated remarkable calm under pressure, working efficiently despite the life-threatening emergency. Fascinating, Torvak murmured. They prioritize group survival over individual safety. Even when death threatens one member, the others risk their own lives to provide assistance. The human team managed to partially repair Dr. Chen's equipment and began a controlled descent toward the surface. Their movements were deliberate and coordinated, following safety protocols even under extreme stress. The Zephyrians followed, preparing to capture the entire team once they reached the surface. Deploy capture nets as they surface, Torvak ordered. Full stun settings. I want them unconscious but unharmed. The 4 humans broke the surface near the research platform, with Dr. Chun clearly in distress from her equipment failure. As they floated there, checking her condition and calling for additional help, invisible nets suddenly materialized around them. Energy fields activated, sending powerful stunning charges through their bodies. Dr. Chun felt a strange tingling sensation, followed by complete paralysis. Her last conscious thought was confusion about the shimmer in the air around them, like heat distortion, but somehow wrong, unnatural. Then consciousness faded, and she sank into the dark. The remaining 8 researchers on the platform watched in horror as their colleagues simply vanished from the ocean surface. One moment the dive team was floating near the platform. The next they had disappeared completely. No sign of struggle, no distress calls, nothing but empty water where 4 people had been seconds before. Sarah, James, Maria called into her radio. Dive team, please respond. We've lost visual contact. Emergency protocols activated immediately. The remaining team deployed rescue boats and underwater search equipment, scanning the area desperately for any sign of their missing colleagues. They found nothing. The ocean had simply swallowed 4 people without leaving a trace. Miles below the surface, the Zephyrian hunting pod rose from the seabed with its precious cargo. The 4 unconscious humans were secured in analysis chambers where their vital signs could be monitored and their physical capabilities measured. Torvak reviewed the initial data with satisfaction. Excellent specimens, he noted in his report to Captain Vextar. Strong physical conditioning, impressive stress tolerance, and remarkable group loyalty. The equipment failure scenario provided valuable data on their emergency response protocols. They show significant potential for extended hunting scenarios. The pod began its journey toward the rendezvous coordinates where the other hunting parties would deliver their captured specimens. Phase 1 was proceeding exactly as planned. Soon they would have multiple human groups to study, and the real fun could begin. On the research platform above, The remaining team members continued their desperate search as daylight faded to darkness. They had sent distress signals to the mainland, but help was still hours away. 8 terrified scientists huddled together in their isolated facility, trying to understand how 4 people could simply vanish from the middle of the ocean. Equipment failure doesn't cause people to disappear, Dr. Santos said quietly, staring at the empty water where their colleagues had last been seen. Something took them, something we didn't see coming. None of them could imagine that their friends were already millions of miles away, aboard an alien spacecraft, being prepared for a fate worse than death. They had become involuntary participants in the galaxy's most exclusive sporting event, selected to provide entertainment for creatures that viewed humanity as nothing more than clever animals to be hunted for sport. But the Zephyrians had made a critical error in their assessment. They had observed human cooperation and interpreted it as weakness, seen their tool use as primitive dependency, and mistaken their scientific curiosity for naivety. They had no understanding of the depths of human resilience, the savage determination that had driven their species from small bands of hunter-gatherers to masters of their entire world. The hunters were about to learn that humans had not become apex predators on Earth through cooperation alone. They had earned that position through an absolute refusal to submit to any threat, a willingness to fight against impossible odds, and a capacity for violence that emerged when their survival was threatened. The galaxy's most feared predators had just captured specimens from a species that had survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, and countless wars through sheer bloody-minded determination to continue existing. They thought they were beginning a hunt, but they had actually lit the fuse on a powder keg that would explode across the stars. The awakening consciousness returned slowly, like climbing up from the bottom of a deep, dark well. Dr. Sarah Chun felt the familiar ache of decompression sickness in her joints, but something was wrong. The air tasted different, metallic, and sharp, with an underlying current of ozone that made her sinuses burn. The surface beneath her was too smooth, too warm, nothing like the metal deck of their research platform. She opened her eyes to absolute darkness, then gradually became aware of a faint, pulsing light emanating from somewhere above her. As her vision adapted, she could make out walls that curved in impossible ways, surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like living tissue, but felt solid to the touch. The space was clearly artificial, but unlike any human architecture she had ever seen. "James," she called softly, her voice echoing strangely in the confined space. "Maria? Anyone?" A weak groan answered her from somewhere to her left. She turned toward the sound, feeling along the smooth floor with her hands. Her fingers encountered fabric, then flesh, then the familiar texture of Dr. Morrison's diving suit. "James, are you okay?" She shook him gently, relief flooding through her as he began to stir. "Sarah, where are we? I feel like someone hit me with a cattle prod." His voice was thick with confusion and pain. "Last thing I remember, we were on the surface after your rebreather failed, then everything went black." Similar groans and questions came from other parts of the chamber as Maria Santos and graduate student David Park began regaining consciousness. All 4 humans found themselves together in what appeared to be some kind of holding cell, with no memory of how they had arrived there. "This isn't possible," Maria whispered, running her hands along the seamless walls. "We were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. There's no structure like this for thousands of miles. It's like we've been transported to some kind of submarine or offshore platform." Dr. Chen activated the small LED flashlight attached to her diving gear, providing enough illumination to examine their surroundings properly. The chamber was roughly spherical, about 4 meters in diameter, with no visible doors or openings. The walls appear to be made of some kind of adaptive material that responded to touch with subtle color changes, but remained solid and impenetrable. "Look at this," David said, pointing to strange symbols that seemed to flow across the walls like living text. "This writing doesn't match any human language I've ever seen. The characters keep shifting and changing like they're alive." The implications of their situation began to sink in as the humans fully regained their faculties. They had been taken from the middle of the ocean by persons unknown, transported to a facility that defied current human technology, and imprisoned in a chamber designed by completely alien intelligence. The rational, scientific part of Dr. Chen's mind rejected the obvious conclusion, but the evidence was overwhelming. "We need to assume we're dealing with some kind of advanced technology," she said, trying to maintain professional calm despite her growing fear. "Whether it's a secret government project, corporate research, or something else entirely, our priority is gathering information and finding a way to communicate with whoever has taken us." What the humans couldn't see were the dozens of observation devices monitoring their every word and action. In the Blood Faunus Observation Center, Captain Vextar and his hunting staff watched the awakening humans with great interest. The subjects' immediate cooperation, their attempts to analyze their environment scientifically, and their calm response to an impossible situation all indicated exceptional mental resilience. Notice how they immediately begin gathering information, observed hunting Master Krillax. No wasted energy on panic or despair. They adapt to the new situation and begin formulating survival strategies within moments of regaining consciousness. The female designated Chun appears to be their pack leader, noted Lieutenant Essicator. The others defer to her authority naturally, suggesting established hierarchy based on competence rather than physical dominance. This could indicate sophisticated social structures. Vextar watched the humans explore their containment chamber with growing excitement. These specimens were already exceeding expectations. Their behavior under stress suggested they would provide exceptional sport once released onto the hunting grounds. "Begin psychological assessment phase," he ordered. "I want to see how they react to controlled stress scenarios. Start with environmental challenges, then progress to direct threats." The first test began subtly. The temperature in the containment chamber started dropping, slowly enough that the humans might not notice immediately, but significantly enough to create physiological stress. Within minutes, their breath became visible in the cooling air. Temperatures dropping, Maria observed, wrapping her arms around herself for warmth. Could be a malfunction in their life support systems or a deliberate test of some kind. If it's a test, what response are they looking for? David asked, teeth beginning to chatter. Panic? Submission? Problem-solving abilities? Dr. Chun considered their options carefully. "We need to conserve body heat and work together. James, you and David should share body warmth. Maria and I will do the same. We'll rotate positions every few minutes to keep blood circulation active." The humans implemented their survival strategy immediately, demonstrating the kind of practical cooperation that had allowed their species to survive in hostile environments for millennia. The Zephyrian observers noted how quickly they adapted their behavior to meet the changing threat. After an hour of steadily dropping temperatures, the environment began warming again. The humans had maintained their group cohesion throughout the test, sharing body heat efficiently and maintaining morale through constant communication. None of them had broken down or demanded individual preference over group survival. Impressive thermal adaptation protocols, Krillax noted in his assessment. They instinctively implement survival strategies that maximize group survival probability. Temperature stress induced cooperation rather than competition for resources. The next test introduced a different kind of challenge. The chamber's lighting began to strobe rapidly, creating disorienting visual effects that would cause severe stress in most species. The flashing patterns were carefully calibrated to trigger fight-or-flight responses while making it difficult to think clearly or maintain coordination. The humans immediately recognized the threat to their mental stability. "Close your eyes and focus on breathing," Dr. Chen instructed. "This is designed to overwhelm our visual processing. We need to rely on other senses and maintain verbal contact." "I can feel the vibration patterns in the floor," Maria reported, keeping her eyes tightly shut. "There's a rhythm to it. Maybe we can use that to stay oriented." The four humans linked arms and began moving in a slow circle around their chamber, using touch and hearing to maintain coordination while the strobing lights tried to disorient them. They developed a system of verbal cues to communicate position and status, effectively negating the psychological impact of the visual assault. After 30 minutes of strobing, the lights returned to normal. The humans had not only maintained their group cohesion, but had developed countermeasures that actually strengthened their coordination. They had turned the test into a team-building exercise. Remarkable adaptation speed, Lieutenant Sikator observed. They identified the nature of the threat within minutes and implemented effective countermeasures. Their sensory substitution capabilities are beyond our initial projections. Vextar decided to escalate the testing. If environmental challenges weren't sufficient to break these humans' cooperation, perhaps direct physical threat would reveal their true nature. The chamber's wall began to extrude a long, flexible appendage tipped with what appeared to be a sharp, barbed point. The appendage moved slowly, but deliberately toward the humans, who immediately recognized it as a clear and present danger. Defensive positions, Dr. Chun commanded, her voice taking on a hard edge that hadn't been present during the environmental tests. Stay together, watch for additional threats, and be ready to fight. The change in the humans' behavior was immediate and dramatic. Their body language shifted from cooperative survival mode to predatory alertness. They moved with fluid precision, positioning themselves to protect each other while maintaining maximum mobility. Dr. Morrison picked up a piece of debris from their diving equipment and held it like a weapon, while Maria Santos positioned herself to flank any attack. Now we see their true nature, Vextar murmured with satisfaction. Beneath the cooperation and scientific detachment lies the predatory instinct. They recognize threats and respond with coordinated violence. The appendage reached toward David, who was positioned closest to the wall. Instead of retreating or panicking, the young graduate student grabbed the threatening appendage with both hands and twisted it violently, attempting to damage whatever mechanism was controlling it. His companions immediately moved to support him, with Dr. Morrison using his improvised weapon to strike at the appendage's base. The humans fought with desperate efficiency, targeting what they perceived as vulnerable points and working together to neutralize the threat. Their movements were coordinated but not rehearsed, suggesting natural combat instincts rather than trained responses. Enough, Vextar ordered, withdrawing the test appendage before the humans could damage it seriously. I've seen what I needed to see. The appendage retracted into the wall, leaving the humans in defensive formation, breathing hard but ready for continued combat. They maintained their alert posture for several minutes, watching for additional threats and checking each other for injuries. Everyone okay? Dr. Chen asked, gradually relaxing as it became clear the immediate danger had passed. Whatever that was, it felt mechanical rather than biological, David reported. Probably some kind of testing device rather than a living creature. But it was definitely designed to cause harm. We're not dealing with human technology, Maria stated flatly. The materials, the construction methods, the testing protocols, none of this matches anything in our scientific database. We need to accept that we're dealing with something completely outside human experience. The implications of that statement settled over the group like a heavy blanket. If they were indeed prisoners of non-human intelligence, their situation was far more serious than any of them had initially imagined. Earth's first contact with alien intelligence was apparently taking the form of imprisonment and experimentation. If they're testing our responses to different stimuli, what's the ultimate purpose? Dr. Morrison asked quietly, are they studying us for scientific purposes or evaluating us for something else? Dr. Chen didn't answer immediately, but her expression suggested she was considering possibilities that terrified her. The systematic nature of the tests, the focus on survival responses, and combat capabilities suggested their captors were evaluating them for purposes that had nothing to do with peaceful scientific exchange. In the observation center, Vextar reviewed the test data with growing enthusiasm. These humans were exceeding every expectation. They demonstrated intelligence, adaptability, courage, and, most importantly, the kind of predatory instincts that would make them worthy opponents in the hunting grounds. Prepare them for transport to Hunting Ground Prime, he ordered. I want these specimens ready for full-scale hunting trials within 2 cycles. Alert the Galactic Hunting Council that we may have found the most promising prey species in centuries. The humans had passed every test, proven themselves worthy of the honor that awaited them. Soon they would learn what it meant to be hunted by the galaxy's apex predators, and the Zephyrians would discover what it meant to hunt a species that refused to accept the role of prey. #The hunting grounds to transport to Hunting Ground Prime took 3 standard cycles. during which the captured humans were kept in suspended animation to prevent them from adapting to their new environment prematurely. When Dr. Sarah Chun and her companions were finally awakened, they found themselves in a completely different environment than their previous containment chamber. They stood in what appeared to be a vast wilderness area under an alien sky, painted in shades of deep purple and orange. Two moons hung visibly in the afternoon light, and the vegetation around them was unlike anything from Earth. Crystalline trees rose in spiraling patterns, their translucent leaves chiming softly in the alien wind. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal, and the air carried the scent of ozone and something sweetly floral. "This isn't Earth," Maria whispered, staring at the impossible landscape stretching to the horizon. "We're not even in our solar system anymore." The four humans found themselves equipped with basic survival gear. Simple clothing suited to the local climate, water containers, basic tools, and what appeared to be some kind of portable shelter. No weapons, no advanced technology, nothing that would give them any significant advantage in this alien environment. A holographic projection suddenly materialized in front of them, displaying the image of Captain Vextar in all his chitinous, predatory glory. The humans instinctively moved closer together, recognizing a clear threat when they saw one. The alien's compound eyes seemed to gleam with anticipation as he addressed them. "Greetings, humans of Earth." The projection began, Vextar's voice translated into English through advanced linguistic processing. "You have been selected for the greatest honor your species could receive, participation in the grand hunt of the Zephyrian Empire. You are now on Hunting Ground Prime, a world designed specifically for testing the capabilities of worthy prey species." Dr. Chun stepped forward, her scientific training overriding her fear. "You had no right to abduct us from our world. We demand immediate return to Earth and an explanation for your actions." Vextar's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. "Rights are irrelevant. You are prey now, and prey exists for the pleasure of predators. However, you have demonstrated exceptional capabilities during testing, so I will explain your situation as a mark of respect for worthy quarry." The hologram gestured to encompass the alien landscape around them. "This world has been terraformed to provide optimal hunting conditions. You will find water, food sources, shelter materials, and various challenges designed to test your survival capabilities. Your objective is simple: survive for as long as possible while being hunted by the finest predators in the galaxy. And if we refuse to participate in your sick game?" Dr. Morrison demanded, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Refusal is not an option," Vextar replied calmly. "The hunt begins whether you choose to participate or not. Your only choice is whether to die cowering or to face your fate with the courage your species demonstrated during testing. I personally hope you choose courage. It makes for much better sport." The projection continued with what amounted to a briefing on the rules of engagement. The humans would be given a 12-hour head, start to explore their environment, and establish initial survival strategies. After that, hunting parties would be deployed to track them down. The hunt would continue until all prey was eliminated or until prey demonstrated such exceptional survival capabilities that they earned the right to join Zephyrian society as honor hunters. In 3,000 cycles of hunting, only 17 individuals from 12 species have achieved that honor, Vextar noted. They are now among our most valued pack members. The opportunity exists for you as well, should you prove worthy of it. David Park, the youngest of their group, found his voice despite his terror. "How many humans have you taken for these hunts?" "You are the first of your species to be tested," the alien captain replied. "Initial evaluations suggest humans may provide exceptional sport, but that remains to be proven in actual hunting conditions. Your performance will determine whether we return to your world for additional specimens." The implications of that statement hit the humans like a physical blow. They weren't just fighting for their own lives, but potentially for the survival of their entire species. If they performed well as prey, Earth would become a hunting preserve for these alien predators. "The 12-hour grace period begins now," Vextar announced. "I suggest you use the time wisely. Study your environment, identify resources, and prepare your survival strategies. The hunters who will soon pursue you are the finest predators in the galaxy, with thousands of cycles of experience and technology you cannot imagine. Your only advantages are your intelligence, your adaptability, and whatever courage your species possesses. The projection vanished, leaving the four humans alone in an alien wilderness with the weight of their species' future resting on their shoulders. For several minutes, nobody spoke as they absorbed the magnitude of their situation. "Okay," Dr. Chen finally said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "We need to think of this as a survival problem with hostile elements. Our goal is to stay alive as long as possible while gathering intelligence about our captors' capabilities and weaknesses." "Intelligence gathering?" Maria asked incredulously. "Sarah, we're about to be hunted by advanced aliens for sport. This isn't a research expedition." "Yes, it is," Dr. Chen replied firmly. "We're the first humans to encounter alien intelligence. Everything we learn, every minute we survive, adds to humanity's knowledge base. If we're going to die here, we're going to make sure our deaths provide information that might help other humans survive future encounters." The group began exploring their immediate surroundings, applying scientific methodology to their survival situation. They tested the local water sources, identified potentially edible vegetation, and mapped the terrain within a kilometer radius of their starting position. The alien environment was surprisingly Earth-like in many ways, suggesting it had been terraformed specifically to accommodate carbon-based life forms. Dr. Morrison discovered that many of the crystalline trees contained a sweet, nutritious sap that was perfectly safe for human consumption. Maria identified several types of fruit-bearing plants that appeared to be artificial hybrids, designed to provide optimal nutrition for various species. The hunting ground was clearly maintained as a sustainable ecosystem where prey could survive indefinitely if they were skilled enough to avoid the predators. "This place is designed to support long-term survival," Maria observed. "They want extended hunts, not quick kills. That gives us time to adapt and learn." As they explored, the humans began to notice subtle signs that they weren't the first prey species to occupy this hunting ground. Scattered among the alien vegetation were tools and shelters built by previous victims, some clearly abandoned recently, others obviously ancient. Each represented a different species' attempt to survive in this deadly environment. "Look at this," David called from a clearing where he had discovered what appeared to be a sophisticated trap system. "Someone built a deadfall trap here, but the construction technique is completely alien. Multiple manipulator limbs, different tool usage patterns, but the basic principles are the same as human trap designs." The discovery was both encouraging and terrifying. Other species had survived long enough to build complex survival infrastructure, but the fact that the area was now abandoned suggested they had ultimately failed to escape the hunters. As the day progressed, the humans established a temporary base camp near a freshwater stream, using materials from previous occupants' abandoned shelters to create a defensive position. They rationed their supplies carefully, knowing they would need to stretch their resources for an unknown duration. "We need to assume this hunt could last weeks or months," Dr. Chen planned aloud. "Our strategy should focus on mobility, concealment, and information gathering. We need to learn about their hunting methods, their technology, their weaknesses." "And then what?" Dr. Morrison asked. "Even if we learn everything about them, we're still trapped on an alien world light years from Earth. How does survival help us in the long term?" "One problem at a time," Dr. Chen replied. "First we survive the hunt. Then we figure out escape options. But we can't help Earth if we're dead, so staying alive is priority one." As the 12-hour grace period neared its end, the humans made their final preparations. They had identified escape routes from their base camp, established rally points if they became separated, and developed a communication system using natural environmental markers. Most importantly, they had begun to think like prey animals while maintaining their human intelligence and adaptability. The alien sunset painted the sky in spectacular colors as the first Zephyrian hunting party prepared to deploy. The humans couldn't see their hunters approaching, but they could feel a change in the environment, a subtle tension that suggested predators were moving into position. "Remember," Dr. Chun whispered to her companions as they prepared to abandon their temporary shelter, "we're not just fighting for our lives. We're fighting for every human who might face this situation in the future. We're the advanced scouts for our entire species." The hunt was about to begin in earnest, and neither predator nor prey fully understood what they were about to unleash. The Zephyrians expected to face clever animals with basic survival instincts. Instead, they were about to encounter a species that had evolved alongside every conceivable threat Earth could produce, survivors who had learned to turn disadvantage into advantage and defeat into victory through pure determination and intelligence. The galaxy's apex predators were about to learn that there were different kinds of hunting, and sometimes the prey decided to hunt back. Hashtag the hunter becomes the hunted pack leader more done, crouched in the crystalline underbrush, his advanced sensors tracking the thermal signatures of the 4 human prey as they moved through the alien forest. The hunt had been progressing for 6 standard days now, and these specimens were proving far more challenging than anticipated. Where other species had panicked or made fatal mistakes within hours, the humans had adapted to their environment with disturbing efficiency. Targets continue to demonstrate exceptional survival protocols, he reported to Captain Vextar aboard the Blood Fawn. They have established multiple cache sites, developed sophisticated concealment techniques, and appear to be studying our hunting patterns rather than simply fleeing. The humans had indeed been busy during their first week on Hunting Ground Prime. Instead of running blindly through the wilderness, Dr. Chun had implemented a systematic survival strategy that treated their situation as a long-term research project. They studied the alien ecosystem, mapped predator movement patterns, and most importantly, began to understand their hunters' capabilities and limitations. They're using persistence hunting tactics on us, Maria Santos observed quietly as she watched a Zephyrian hunter pass within 20 meters of their concealed observation post. Look at how they move. They're ambush predators, not pursuit specialists. They expect their prey to panic and make mistakes, not to settle in for extended observation. The humans had discovered that their alien captors possessed advanced technology and superior physical capabilities, but they also had psychological weaknesses. The Zephyrians hunted according to rigid protocols developed over millennia of chasing prey species that followed predictable behavior patterns. They expected fear, desperation, and ultimately submission. They were not prepared for prey that studied them back. Dr. Morrison had taken detailed notes on Zephyrian hunting behavior using improvised writing materials made from local plant fibers. They hunt in small packs of 3 to 4 individuals, he whispered to his companions. Advanced sensors, energy weapons, personal shields. But they're overconfident. They approach too close because they expect their prey to be helpless. Their technology has made them dependent, Dr. Chen added, reviewing her own observations. They rely on their sensors instead of natural hunting instincts. When we use the crystalline trees to mask our thermal signatures, they lose track of us completely. They've forgotten how to hunt without their artificial advantages. The breakthrough had come on the 3rd day when David Park discovered that the local crystalline vegetation interfered with Zephyrian sensor technology. The translucent trees contained metallic compounds that created natural camouflage against electromagnetic scanning. By coating themselves with sap from these trees and moving carefully among the crystal formations, the humans could become effectively invisible to their hunters' advanced sensors. It's time to change the dynamic, Dr. Chen announced to her companions. We've been playing their game, running and hiding like prey, but we have advantages they don't know about. Human intelligence, adaptability, and, most importantly, our willingness to take risks they can't anticipate. You're talking about fighting back, David said, understanding the implication immediately. Turning this from a hunt into a war. Exactly. They expect prey behavior, so we give them predator behavior instead. We stop running and start hunting. The plan they developed over the next day was audacious in its simplicity. Using their detailed observations of Zephyrian hunting patterns, they would set up an ambush designed to capture one of their hunters alive. The alien technology would provide them with weapons and intelligence about their captor's capabilities. More importantly, it would send a message that humanity was not willing to accept the role of prey. Pack Leader Mordun was leading a routine patrol through Sector 7 when the trap was sprung. One of his hunters, Velkar, reported detecting faint human thermal signatures near a stream where the prey had previously established a temporary camp. Following standard protocols, the hunting pack moved in to investigate, expecting to find evidence of recent human passage or perhaps catch the prey making their familiar mistake of approaching water sources during daylight hours. What they found instead was a carefully prepared killing ground. The humans had spent 2 days preparing the ambush site, using techniques learned from studying abandoned infrastructure left by previous prey species. They had combined human engineering knowledge with alien materials to create a trap that was both sophisticated and completely unexpected. As Velkar approached the stream to investigate the thermal signatures, concealed deadfall traps activated around the entire hunting pack. Massive logs suspended by crystalline fiber ropes crashed down from multiple directions, while pit traps opened beneath the aliens' feet. The Zephyrians' personal shields absorbed most of the impact, but the coordinated attack succeeded in separating them and creating confusion. In the chaos that followed, Dr. Morrison emerged from concealment, wielding a spear tipped with a sharpened piece of alien metal salvage from abandoned equipment. His target was Velkar, who had been knocked down by the deadfall, but was rapidly recovering. The human scientist, transformed into a warrior by necessity, struck with precision learned from studying Zephyrian anatomy during their observations. The spear penetrated between Velkar's armor plates, finding a vulnerable spot that the aliens' personal shields couldn't protect. The Zephyrian hunter went down with a shriek of pain and surprise, his weapon flying away into the underbrush. For the first time in millennia, a Zephyrian had been brought down by prey. Pack leader Mordun watched in stunned disbelief as the supposedly helpless humans swarmed over his fallen hunter. They moved with coordinated precision, stripping Velkar of his weapons and equipment while maintaining defensive positions against counterattack. This was not prey behavior. This was a coordinated military assault executed by intelligent predators. Impossible, he whispered, raising his own weapon to eliminate the human threat. But before he could fire, another trap activated. Dr. Chun and Maria Santos emerged from flanking positions, having used Zephyrian movement patterns against them. They carried improvised weapons made from crystalline materials that could penetrate alien armor at close range. The engagement that followed lasted only minutes, but its implications would reshape the relationship between human and Zephyrian for generations. Instead of helpless prey fleeing in terror, the aliens faced organized resistance from creatures that refused to accept their assigned role in a galactic food chain. When the brief battle ended, 3 Zephyrian hunters lay dead or incapacitated, while Mordun himself had been forced to retreat after sustaining serious injuries. The humans had captured advanced alien technology, weapons, and, most importantly, proof that their supposedly invincible captors could be beaten by determination and intelligence. Mordun to Bloodfang, the pack leader transmitted, his voice tight with pain and shock. Request immediate extraction. The humans have. The prey has turned predator. They killed Velkar and captured his equipment. This is no longer a standard hunt. Aboard the Bloodfang, Captain Vextar received the impossible report with growing alarm. In 3,000 cycles of hunting, no prey species had ever successfully killed a Zephyrian hunter. The implications were staggering. If these humans could defeat trained Zephyrian warriors, what would happen when more of their species learned these techniques? Sir, we're receiving signals from other hunting grounds, Lieutenant Isikator reported urgently. Similar incidents are being reported across all active sites. Human prey groups are coordinating attacks on hunting parties. 2 more hunters confirmed killed, others reporting casualties and equipment losses. The impossible was happening on a galactic scale. Somehow, the human specimens had not only learned to fight back, but were sharing information across multiple hunting grounds. They were treating this as a war rather than a hunt, and they were winning. How are they coordinating between separated groups? Hunting Master Krillax demanded, studying the tactical reports flooding in from across their hunting operations. The answer came from the technical analysis teams studying captured human equipment. Hidden among their primitive diving gear, Dr. Chin's team had concealed emergency transmitters that were now broadcasting on frequencies the Zephyrians had never thought to monitor. The humans had been in communication with other captured groups from the beginning, sharing intelligence and coordinating resistance efforts. They played us, Vextar realized with something approaching admiration. From the moment of capture, they were gathering intelligence and preparing for organized resistance. We thought we were studying prey, but they were studying us. On Hunting Ground Prime, Dr. Chun and her companions examined their captured Zephyrian technology with growing excitement. The alien weapons were sophisticated but not beyond human understanding, and, more importantly, they had access to communications equipment that revealed the scope of the Zephyrian hunting operation. There are 12 active hunting grounds with human specimens, she reported to the other resistance groups via captured communication channels. Nearly 200 of our people scattered across multiple worlds. But now we have weapons, intelligence, and, most importantly, we know they can be beaten. This is Dr. Elizabeth Harper from Hunting Ground 7, came a response from another group of human survivors. We've analyzed the hunter psychology profiles in their databases. These aliens are fundamentally bullies. They've never faced serious resistance because they always picked on weaker species. But when prey fights back effectively, they don't know how to respond. The tide was turning across the galaxy as human resistance groups coordinated their efforts and shared tactical intelligence. Instead of scattered prey animals waiting to be hunted, the Zephyrians now faced an organized insurgency led by a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning to survive impossible odds. Captain Vextar faced a decision that would determine the future of both species. He could escalate the hunt, bringing in heavier weapons and treating the humans as a military threat. Or he could acknowledge that the greatest predators in galactic history had just encountered a species that refused to be prey. The choice he made would echo across the stars as humanity took its first steps toward becoming the galaxy's most feared predators, hunters who had learned their skills in the cruelest school of all, being hunted by those who thought themselves apex predators, only to discover that true apex predators were just getting started. The hunt was over. The war had begun, and the Zephyrians were about to learn that in the vast darkness between the stars, humanity had found its purpose, to ensure that no species would ever again face the terror of being hunted for sport. They had become the guardians of the galaxy, the apex predators who hunted other predators, and their first lesson to the universe would be written in Zephyrian blood.